In this section, we will explore Edinburgh. You will find out about the city's history and the Queen's residence here. Scotland's capital city is spelled Edinburgh, but it's actually pronounced Edinburgh. The name comes from ancient Gaelic and means hill fort on the sloping ridge. It is a beautiful city in the southeast of Scotland, and although it's the capital, it is Scotland's second largest city, after Glasgow. It is famous for its beautiful architecture and rich history. The city itself has a new town and an old town. The old town was built up in the Middle Ages when there was constant fear of attack, and around the mid-1400s, walls were built right around the city for protection. In fact, Edinburgh's boundary was defined by these walls until the late 1800s. Only a few parts of the walls remain today, but those that have survived are now protected monuments. One of Edinburgh's most famous streets is the Royal Mile, and it was here that some of the first ever skyscrapers were built in the 1700s. Some buildings were over 10 stories high, which was really high for that time. But these high-rise buildings weren't built to give people great views or to provide an impressive cityscape. For over 250 years, no one built outside Edinburgh's walls. But there was a problem. The population of Edinburgh was growing. By the 1630s, there were 60,000 people living within these walls, and there was simply not enough space. The only option was to build up or down, so they did. These medieval skyscrapers were very different to the ones we see today, though. They were poorly made, cramped, and unsafe. They didn't just go up either. There were basements that were dark and smelly. The rich would live on the top floors, while the poor people would live underground with the smell of open sewers and rats. The poorest of Edinburgh's residents would live in underground vaults, which were originally made for storage. In 1824, a series of fires broke out in Edinburgh city centre, only a few months after the world's first organised fire brigade was established by a 24-year-old called James Braidwood, right here in Edinburgh. What came to be known as the Great Fire of 1824 destroyed many of these buildings and left between 400 and 500 families homeless. Today, many of these underground vaults and tunnels have been rediscovered and offer spooky, haunted walking tours to visitors with ghost stories galore. You might be more interested in Victoria Street, which is rumoured to be the inspiration for Diagon Alley in Harry Potter. The street is home to Diagon House, which is part shop and part museum packed full of Harry Potter memorabilia, including a replica Nimbus 2001 broomstick. The author of the Harry Potter books, J.K. Rowling, actually wrote the early chapters of the books in cafes in the city's old town. So, back to the Royal Mile. What a rich name! But where does it come from? Well, the Royal Mile leads from the palace of Holyrood House to Edinburgh Castle. This street was a traditional procession route for kings and queens. The palace of Holyrood House is still the official place of residence of the British monarch in Scotland. That means that Queen Elizabeth II, the current Queen of the United Kingdom, and her husband, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, still stay here when they visit Scotland, which they do every year.